The Mesoamerican ball game is the oldest known team sport in the world. It was practiced by ancient pre-Columbian cultures of Central America and played almost a millennium before the establishment of the first Greek Olympic Games. A fast-paced, often brutal game tied in with religious ritual, contestants often lost their lives and human sacrifices were regular occurrences. The Aztec ball game had a lot of ritual significance. It was meant to mirror the ball court of the heavens, this being the ball court of the underworld where the sun passed each night. The game represented the battle between day and night, and so was also related to the human blood sacrifices that were intended to keep the sun moving in the sky. Around the court was a slope, surrounded at the outer edge by walls about 11 feet high. The court was usually between 100 and 200 feet long, with a center line, and 6 markers along the sloping walls. At center court against the walls were 2 stone-carved rings, roughly 35 inches in diameter, often ornately carved in the form of an animal. Surrounding the court were areas for spectators, nobles and judges. The structure would often include skull racks. These had a base with upright wood posts. Bars ran from post to post, adorned with the skulls of sacrifice victims. Sometimes the walls would show reliefs of the winners and losers of the past. The ball, or ully, was made of hard rubber and weighed about 9 pounds. Due to the rough surface of the court itself, protective gear was worn by the players. Players wore deerskin guards for the chin, hip, thigh, hands, and cheeks. Even with this protection, players would end the game bruised and bleeding, since they often had to throw themselves to the ground. The teams would face each other on the court. The object in the end was to get the ball through the stone hoop. This was extremely difficult, and so if it actually happened the game would be over. In fact, according to historian Manuel Aguilar Moreno, some courts didn't even have rings. Another important rule was that the ball was never allowed to touch the ground. Players couldn't hold or even touch the ball with their hands, only the elbows, knees, hips and head were used. As you may imagine, this made for a very fast-paced game, and the players had to constantly throw themselves against the surface of the court to keep the ball from landing. The players were skillful, and the ball could stay in the air for an hour or more. Because it was so hard to get the ball through the hoops, there were other objects as well. Players could hit one of the 6 markers along the sides of the court. Or, they would be given points for other skillful plays. Fouls were also given if the players couldn't get the ball across the center line, or if they touched the ball with the wrong part of the body, such as the hand or calf. The dance of voladores begins with 5 men circling a tall pole. One of the men plays music with a flute and a small drum. They then climb the pole and position themselves on a small wooden rotating platform at the top. The man playing the music is called the caporal. He stands in the center, playing his flute and drum, and does a dance, facing each of the 4 cardinal directions in turn. The platform begins to spin and the 4 voladores launch themselves off and begin rotating the pole upside down. The caporal remains at the top of the pole as the others descend. In their descent, each volador circles the pole 13 times for each of the 4 voladores, for a total of 52 rotations, representing the number of years in the Mesoamerican calendar cycle. According to tradition, there was a severe drought in the Totonacapan area of Veracruz, and food and water became scarce, so a group of elders met to find a solution. They decided that a ceremony should be performed to ask the gods to return the rain and fertility to the soil. They instructed some young men of the community to locate the tallest and straightest tree in the forest and bring it back to the village. They then stripped the tree of its leaves and branches, dug a hole to stand it upright, and blessed the site with ritual offerings. Then they performed a ritual to the god Xipe-Totec, god of agriculture and springtime, so that the rains would return and nurture the soil, and their crops would flourish. The men adorned their bodies with feathers so that they would appear like birds, thereby attracting the gods' attention to their request. They climbed to the top of the trunk and with vines wrapped around their waist they secured themselves to the trunk and launched themselves off of it, spinning in circles around the trunk. The four voladores who descend to the ground represent the cardinal directions, and the caporal at the top of the pole represents the fifth direction, vertical, the center of the universe. The voladores perform in honor of the elements, sun, wind, earth, and water, thus honoring the earth, the passage of time and their place in the universe.